we just realized that, we had so many ideas. Like the first meeting, it was like we had hundreds of ideas because we were just like so passionate about finding something. So then we pretty much on that meeting decided that let's not stop here. Let's not stop just by building this. Let's build the system that we always wanted.
You are listening to All Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. In the series, we're looking at the business side of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In our episodes, we have conversations with professional athletes, BJJ brands, business experts, freelancers serving BJJ community, media personalities, and so on. In this episode, our guest is Ricard Carneborn, one of the co-founders of Smoothcomp, the world's leading combat sports tournament platform. There are very few companies not only in BJJ but any field that can claim to have the best product on the market. Smoothcomp can do that with confidence. A long-time BJJ black belt and organizer of Nordic Open, Ricard talks to us about the origins of Smoothcomp, its operations, relationship with the key customers, team structure and plans for the future, among other things. Once again, it's a great insight into a product used by thousands of people across the globe. This podcast is brought to you by alljujitsu.com, the world's first complete business platform for BJJ professionals. We hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Ricard, thanks very much for joining. I know you're a busy man with all your podcasts, but again, thanks very much for joining All Jiu-Jitsu Podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. My pleasure.
Smoothcomp, the best platform for competition out there, 100%. I'll tell you a little story. A few years ago, I was talking to somebody, one of my friends, and at the time, I think you were just new, you just started up, and I was thinking, why is there no good competition platform? Like at the time, I think there was Strongone, people using Strongone or something like that, mostly, and I was like, this is so bad, and I was like, maybe we should just do a competition platform, the system. And he turned around to me, and he's just like a software developer, and he's like, have you seen Smoothcomp? I was like, no, what is it? Check out Smoothcomp, you won't want to do anything else after that. And then I looked at it. Obviously a lot of competitions are running on Smoothcomp, and it's near perfect. So tell us a little bit about how you guys started out and what your background is.
We actually had the same conversation as you guys had. Like, why isn't there any good place where you can find tournaments? I am an organizer. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm a black belt since 2011, and I've been competing for many years and been a coach and also an organizer. I do tournaments here in Sweden, Nordic BJJ Open. That's for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then Nordic Cup, it's for sport Jiu-Jitsu. So we've been doing that for 20 years. Started out with pen and paper solution, tried to find software. I've always been fascinated by software. I'm not a developer, but I really like computers and software. So that's also always been a fascination of mine. Then we started looking into softwares to kind of help out with the registration process. Found some decent softwares, but never anything that really solved the problem of being an organizer. And that's actually during the day when the tempo is high and there's a lot of stress, because the softwares that I found was only taking us to kind of the helping out with the registration process. We could put fighters into brackets, but once the fight started, there was no solution that incorporated scoreboards. So my first events running with a software, we still had to put the results on a paper and then take that paper into the main main table where I was sitting, and then input that manually into the software to kind of try to distribute some kind of results during the day. So then we just I wasn't happy with that solution. So then I have a good friend, Martin Johnson. He's a black belt as well, organizer of Swedish Open in Sweden, of course. And then so he's in pretty much the same situation as I am. he had a student and a good friend, and that's the third owner, our CTO, Martin Varghult. And they had kind of started building a small registration module, because Martin has an IT company since 15 years, building websites, building stuff for companies around the west part of Sweden. So they had like a small module, and then I saw that and I was like, that's kind of interesting. Shouldn't we try to do something together? And that's how it started. So the first kind of 1.0 version was actually just like a registration process that helped a little bit more, like, a fighter could register and pay. But then once we started, we just realized that, we had so many ideas. Like the first meeting, it was like we had hundreds of ideas, because we were just like so passionate about finding something. So then we pretty much on that meeting decided that let's not stop here. Let's not stop just by building this. Let's build the system that we always wanted.
Having a lot of ideas is amazing, because it fuels the kind of the development and everything. But I always find it's challenging when you have too many ideas to try to basically narrow it down to something actionable. So how did you go about getting 100 ideas to something more manageable, so you can get started with something solid and put out like versions of the product, I guess?
Yeah, that was a process in the beginning. I remember, like Martin, when we first started out, we had a messenger thread, like a Facebook messenger thread, that we were just constantly writing ideas. And then after a while, we realized this is not very productive. We need to kind of structure our work a little bit better. So then we started using a software it's called Asana. We started implementing kind of projects there, and then we worked with that for a while. But then eventually we moved on to a proper GitLab solution where you can actually work together with the developers. But like the first couple of months was just brainstorming, and because I have no experience in working with a software company. I come from a totally different background. I work with sports, and I'm a personal trainer, and so this was new to me. My brother is a developer, so I learned a lot from him. He's been working with big companies, and he's used to that developer structure on how you work with projects. So we learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from him. But then of course Martin Varghult, who is the CTO, he of course brought in a lot of knowledge, and his developers, and so at the beginning it was kind of unstructured, but over the years we learned a lot, and now we work in a very structured way, and we put our thoughts into projects, and then we create milestones, and we have different projects depending on if we're working towards a specific customer. We set up a milestone for that, and then we decide on sprints on how to prioritize between the different things we have. And sometimes we do our own development, so it's a mix between customer requests and our own roadmap.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. It's kind of the merger of the kind of the tech style project management with the jiu-jitsu. It's quite fascinating. You don't really see that often in our space. And how long would you say it took you from the initial concept, so from that initial registration system that you had developed, to something that resembles a current system that you have?
So the first meeting we had was in March 2015. I remember that very clearly because I had a good friend here at the academy, and he was also involved in running the tournaments here. So he was also part of that brainstorming meeting, and he was a designer. So he made some really good sketches based on, our conversations over the year of what a system could do. And then we had this first meeting at now Smoothcomp headquarters where the developers are working from. And that was in March 2015. And then we worked furiously over those over like April, May, during the summer. And then we had the first product launched in October of 2015. So actually it was my event that I run each October. That was the first event. And Martin Weirhult, the CTO, he was actually still deploying updates in the car on the way up to my tournament. So that was kind of crazy. He was making the final touches Friday night before we started Saturday morning.
How important at the time was it the fact that you were your first customer, basically your own customer, and you could trial and error the process rather than trying to deploy the product, that it wasn't necessarily like 100% ready to let's say somebody third party who perhaps would turn around and say, hey guys, this isn't working for me. Was that just adding a little bit confidence to the fact that it was your own product?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of like why we have been able to be successful and grow so fast, is because we're constantly using our own product. So I heard other stories where like a software company tries to build something that they have no knowledge of. They're just, it's a customer request, can you build this for me? And they don't have the language for the sports, or they don't understand the market. So definitely that was one of our big advantages, that it was my event or our events that were like the guinea pigs. We were testing it out, and I mean, the first version was okay. I mean, I had a great event and it helped so much. It reduced the stress, and I could actually enjoy that event a lot more than I was used to. So it helped a lot. But of course, we instantly saw things that we needed to adjust. So 1 month later, Martin had the Swedish Open. So, I mean, the version between October in my event and then 1 month later was like 50% better, because there were small tweaks. Like in the beginning, the schedule wasn't updating after each fight like we do now. Now, each time that somebody saves a fight, we instantly update the schedule. So it's super dynamic. That wasn't available in the first version. So yeah, we constantly added small tweaks, and we changed the design 2 times, and we're actually doing it soon again. So we're constantly tweaking it and learning by organizing events ourselves.
Yeah, that's awesome. And did you know from the very beginning that this is something that would potentially scale to a basically worldwide scene, or were you initially just kind of aiming to serve yourself? Like, when did that realization come into play? The fact that you could be like the major player in this game.
At the beginning, it was just like trying to solve our own issues with being organizers, but I think we're all pretty much the same. That's how my brain works. Like if I see an opportunity, I always think, worldwide domination in a sense. So pretty fast, I would say I understood that, because we got so great feedback from those first events. And then I remember so clearly, like suddenly I got an email from the States. And I have no idea how he found us, but he just said, "I seen your software. I think it looks great. Can I be a customer?" And I was like, that was the first, from not within Sweden. And we're like, man, shit, this is, they found us all the way from the States. And that was like, late December, January or something. So then I called Martin instantly. I'm like, hey, we got this email. And then we realized that we didn't have support for time zones. So we were just, we didn't have to worry about time zones, but because we were only doing events in Sweden. So then we just had to, really work hard to solve that. And so that was kind of like at the moment I understood that, this is going to get huge, because there's nothing out there. I mean, there were other softwares, but I think we managed to find something that was lacking. And that's like the giving the user the power of knowing instantly when they are fighting, the personal account. and lessen the burden of the organizer, because other softwares, if the fighter can't change their registration, it means that they have to send an email to the organizer and say, can you change my weight class to something that they should be able to do by themselves. If you look at any other software, that's, if a software doesn't allow you to change your personal information, you wouldn't use it. But that was the case with a lot of the softwares out there. You had to request changes from the organizer. So
yeah, to this date, I think with BJJ, you still have to request the changes if you have to do anything. So yeah, that's fascinating. So first customer, external customer, let's say, was from the US, and when was, I guess, the largest surge in that external force of customers? When did kind of it go, let's say, mainstream?
I would say when we got in contact with the UAE JJF. That was also kind of a fun story, because Martin had been contacted by the UAE JJF, based in Abu Dhabi, running events all over the world. Now there are two companies. Now there are UAE JJF and AJP, but still it's the same people behind it. And he had an email from Rodrigo, which is Rodrigo Valerio, who is the technical manager, asking about maybe if Martin was interested in running an UAE JJF event in Sweden. Pretty much if Swedish Open could be a UAE JJF event. And he declined that, for several reasons. But he had this email, and then my family was visiting Martin on the West Coast. He lives close to Gothenburg. So we were spending some days together there, and constantly talking about Smoothcomp. This is like 6 months since we launched, and then we were supposed to go on this small trip with a boat, and then we started talking about this email, and he said, should I maybe send an email to them and ask? I don't know what they're using. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and then we just pretty much 10 minutes just send this email. We didn't spend much time on it. We just said, hey, we're doing this, are you interested? Let us know. And then we just went on to this trip, and then when we got back, we got a reply in 2 hours. And I was like, yeah, we're interested. And I was like, yeah, wow, this is cool. So then we set up a meeting. They had a first test event. It was very successful. And then there's always a process, but after a couple of months, they launched, and then that really took off. So that helped us tremendously. Then we got to travel to Abu Dhabi to meet them, and then we started working very close with them to build their websites and totally restructured everything, how they worked with their events.
That's awesome, and again, something so significant can come out of like a little initiative, just like writing an email, right? So yeah, if you don't ask, you don't get, for sure. And so I mentioned in the beginning, I remember, again, just that's from my memory, Strong One used to be the player on the scene, and that was very, very kind of primitive system at the time. No offense to the guys, I don't think they'll be listening, but if they are, no offense, it was quite primitive back in the day. Who do you view, or do you think you have any real competition in the scene? Because you don't really, I presume you don't really have much interaction with other players in that space. But are there any other systems that you would view as competition?
We've seen. I mean, when we started, we knew about Strong One. We saw that there were other softwares out there, and sometimes like a new player shows up that we view that, and so yeah. I mean, absolutely, there are some tournaments still. Some companies still out there, and some organizations have built their own in-house software only used by them. I know some of companies in the States, they have I think American Grappling Federation has built their own software. We have been in contact with them, but yeah, that's how it is. And I saw a Russian company trying to do the same thing as we're doing now, and yeah, it keeps us on our toes, of course, which is good. I mean, competition is always good.
For sure. Again, it just pushes you to new limits, to new features, etc. And in terms of what I also found interesting when I first looked at it, again, I'm not running any tournaments, but I'm always interested in how things work from the inside. So, like looking at the even the pricing that you present, it's quite interesting. So you sell credits, right?
Correct.
And that also includes the transaction processing fee. So that brings me to the next question. Do you use any external provider for transaction processing, or does your system take care of so for example, do you use Stripe, or is it all internally developed?
We use other different payment providers. So we have support for Stripe, PayPal, MasterCard, Fondi in Russia, the Brazilian payment solution, Ideal. So we have, like, over the years, we added a lot of different payment solutions, but we're also working on our own solution, Smooth Payments, so that we can offer even better rates if you're using our payment solution.
Yeah, because you would have to incorporate your margin on top of what the providers are charging, right? If you're processing some form of transaction for them, so that makes sense. So you have different brackets of credits that you sell, right? Obviously, the more you buy, the cheaper it gets for the tournaments. And with the likes of the large customers, like the Abu Dhabi Federation, I think you have Grappling Industries, you have Naga as well, right? So do they work on the same premise as the kind of smaller companies, or do they have some form of a different arrangement, without going into specifics?
No, we decided early on that we wanted to, first of all, give the customers a pricing model that they understood, because nobody likes to pay for something that they're not using. So the idea was to sell credits. The credits never expire, and you only pay for what you use. So one fighter is one credit. One fighter can compete in several different divisions, so he can go gi, no gi, and if you have different divisions in one tournament, we only charge one credit. So that was important to us, to find a model that was understandable and that was fair. And then we also have kind of set discount prices. So if you buy 1,000 credit, you get 25% off. If you buy more than 5,000, you get 50% off. And that if you have the money to pay upfront, then you can get 50% off. And that's what we offer to any customer. So, and of course, a large company like Grappling Industries or Naga, they have the money to pay upfront for the higher discount level.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense, obviously, for them. And so you have kind of a mix of large customers and small customers who run kind of one-off tournaments and maybe series, but less frequent. So the large customers obviously often get their kind of own interface and their own dedicated domain, even, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have after about a year or something, that was also on the roadmap. But then we got to build the federation platform, that we call it, or a company platform, and that's a subscription model. So that's something that you pay per month. We have two versions: a basic version or a premium version, and then you get your own subdomain. So you get yourcompany.smoothcomp.com. You can gather all your events on that page. And then depending on the version, you can have a membership feature, either for academies. So let's say you're the Australian BJJ Federation, for example. They use Smoothcomp for their entire federation in Australia. So they have afbjj.smoothcomp.com. They have academy memberships. So in order to compete in Australia, you need to pay for a membership to the Australian Federation for your academy. And then they also have the premium version, which allows them to charge individual players also. So they have academy memberships and then memberships for athletes. And then they have ranking. So we have a ranking feature so that they can bring in all their organizers. I think in Australia they have like 15 different organizers running events under different accounts, organizer accounts. But then we can connect all those organizer accounts to the AFBJ platform. And then from the results from the respective events, they can bring together a national ranking automatically. So it's a one solution for a federation to both administer their members and their academies and also the rankings.
Yeah, so it's very much integrated. So they don't have to basically navigate between the systems and can use a single way of doing things, which is pretty good. And so you mentioned that initially when the guys from the States reached out to you, you didn't have the time zone support system within the actual system, but that also, I guess, has implications on your staff support, like your physical support to people if they need to reach out to you. So when somebody is like working from the States and somebody else on the other end from Australia, so how do you manage any sort of kind of emergencies in terms of physical contact?
Yeah, exactly. Staying up all night. No, we do have a developer working from San Diego. So he's been able to kind of help out in those situations where there's, when we need to solve something very fast. But other than that, I think we managed to be pretty good at, we're very fast on replying to emails. And if a customer wants to have support during an event and it's in another time zone that we're not awake, we can always solve that. So we have support pretty much around the entire day and night if they require it. But the whole idea is also that the software should be easy to use and stable, and it should not require us to help. So a first-time user needs to spend a lot of time in the demo version to practice, and then once it's time for their event, they should be able to handle it on their own. So far we've been able to solve all crises, but of course there's been some times when I've been woke up in the middle of the night or working really late with something. So yeah, it's a constant grind.
Of course, but again, it does help for sure when the software is stable and it's not crashing on people every 2 seconds. Yeah. So how is your team structured now? So how many people does it take to run this whole system?
So the headquarters is in Stenungsund, which is in the west part of Sweden, close to Gothenburg. And that's where the developers work from, and also that's where our CTO Martin is running the headquarters. And then we have one developer working from San Diego. He's a black belt as well. He's married to a Swedish girl. She trains here, so now they're actually moving back to Sweden. But he's been with us for a couple of years now, and so he's in San Diego. I'm here in Stockholm. Martin, our CEO, he also lives in Stenungsund, so he's close to the headquarters. And then we outsource different parts of the work we do. So, for instance, we have maybe people in Poland working with something, or depending on what we need to do, we can outsource different parts of that. So, and then we have support people working with support. So, right now maybe 8 people working on a daily basis, but then sometimes another team can come in and build something specific for us.
Interesting. And now, so you mentioned obviously you have developed some close relationships with the larger customers, but I presume when they are running kind of daily events, not daily but weekly events, probably like Grappling Industries, they have like a few events every week. Abu Dhabi guys have a few events every week. You probably don't get the chance to talk to them too much extensively. So how and I know I've seen you doing a lot of podcasts with these guys now. So how are you using this kind of forced break, as an opportunity to both keep yourself, I guess, occupied and entertained with something useful, but also to get some valuable feedback and talk to your customers and develop relationships? So how have you made the positive? I know you have. So how have you made the positive steps or positive actions out of this unfortunate circumstances?
Yeah, correct. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in charge of the social media and this part where we do the podcast and the Smoothcomp studio. And so we've been doing webinars for a couple of years now. Started out, with the tools we had back then, but I always had a vision that we should have a professional studio where we could, build our tutorials and, interview fighters, interview coaches. And when this very unfortunate situation showed up with the coronavirus, it was a good opportunity to kind of really put this into to work. So I started working with it pretty fast. We had some Smoothcomp studios where when we launched new features, we just went online and then we kind of showed the new features, and we got some people watching them and asking questions. And but then we reached out to our organizers and said, hey, we're doing this interview week, and would you like to be a guest? And then we got David Agusi from Grappling Industries. We got John Thomas from Tap Cancer Out. George Handlon is an organizer in Australia. Yesterday we talked to Kip Collar from Naga, and today we're going to talk to Christian Graugard from Belt Checker, because we actually launched a really, really nice feature yesterday that we're going to talk more about today with him. But we have introduced belts in Smoothcomp. So to summarize, when you created a user profile on Smoothcomp before, we only asked for your name, your birth, and your email. So that was pretty much it. And then you could register to tournaments, but I mean, we didn't have any belts on your profile, so you could register for a blue belt or a purple belt in tournaments. That we never controlled that. That was up to you. I mean most people, of course, they don't cheat with this. You have your blue belt and then you compete as a blue belt. But we had this request from several of the bigger companies that they wanted to have more control over the belts. So we've been working with that for a while, and then when Christian built the Belt Checker, have you seen it?
Yes, yeah, I've seen the concept. I think I checked out the website as well. Yeah.
So basically, he's built a tool where you can create a profile on Belt Checker and then have your belts verified by the community. So yeah, in my case, I got my black belt from Teta, Eduardo Rios, he lives in Norway. And I got my other belts from Marcelo Yogi. So I've added all my belts to Belt Checker, and then people have kind of vouch, is that the word? Yeah. Validated my belts and say, yeah, I know Richard, I train with him, or I train for him, and I seen him compete, and then I uploaded my IBGF certificate as well, and my belts are now approved by the community as well. And what we did with Smoothcomp is that we build an integration, an API between Belt Checker and Smoothcomp, so that if you have a Belt Checker account, we're using the API between the two companies now, and then we can verify your belts even on Smoothcomp. So we transfer the information from Belt Checker to Smoothcomp. So we'll show your belt history on Smoothcomp. And what we also did is that we added kind of rules for the organizers, so that once you compete, let's take jiu-jitsu as an example, black belts. Once you compete as a black belt on Smoothcomp, you can never register for a brown belt again, because we locked that. So you're because that's of course how it should be. But now we're built features so that if you compete at one level, you can never compete at a lower belt again.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, that's fascinating that you have built that integration with belt checker, because the way I see it, any new feature that it requires physical input from a person always is a bit of a hassle, because people, especially people who are already registered, and obviously that there's probably ways you can force it, where you can't register for something unless you input the data, but it's still that effort that is required from people to do something is sometimes needs a little bit of a nudge. Whereas if you integrate something that already exists, and I believe they have like thousands of people already registered on the belt checker, so it sounds like a bit of a game changer in terms of the whole repository of belts, repository of the valid ranking, because again, to prevent the sandbag and to prevent the fake belts, to preserve the integrity of the sport, which is amazing. And how does this translate?
What we also did, I just started to interrupt, but we also, even our developers managed to script all the old events. So we have added all the previous tournaments since the start of Smoothcomp. We have added the rules to all the events. And then we also added this information to the profiles. So if you have competed in Smoothcomp as a purple belt 2 years ago, we have added this belt to your profile. So it's not working just from today and onwards. It's actually being, for all the events back in time. So yeah, pretty cool. Check it out. Go to your Smoothcomp account and you're gonna see your belt history, and you can see the belts you competed at on Smoothcomp.
That's awesome, fantastic. The other thing I like is the I think it's fairly recent, relatively recent feature that when you have your match coming up, it displays on top of your dashboard, right? As soon as you log in, you don't need to actually look for competition, you don't need to look for your entry, but it displays right on top what's your next match. So that's pretty good. I think it would be awesome to see also something for the coaches specifically. I don't know if there is something already, where I could see, as a coach, I could see next match of my academy coming up.
Yeah, you can actually do that already.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's one section of each event is called Find Matches.
No, yeah, I know that one. What I meant is as easy as your own match on top. So that would be awesome.
That's cool. Good idea. Yeah, that's one part of the system that we have on the roadmap that we will develop, and we're actually building. I don't know if I can say this. Yeah, I can say it. We're building smartphone applications, so PVA, progressive web apps, so that we will be able to notify you if you have this app. You will get notified, for instance, if the organizer published the brackets or if they make changes. So that's coming. That's a big project for us that we will soon start working more intensely with, and hopefully launch the PVA soon. That will really help, because now you can use the browser. It's a responsive web page, and it's works really good on your smartphone, but an app is always an app, and notifications is something that we're looking into, and try to implement that with our streaming solution, and really build a notification system across the platform.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, obviously apps are kind of a different ball game, and almost even elevate the status-wise. It elevates your platform to a new level. What I also found with the people who are using your platform, I think it kind of forces, again from my perspective, almost upgrade the tournaments to the venues that are supporting good internet connection and all that sort of stuff. Do you find any problems with that, I guess, or I don't know if there are any organizers or any venues, serious venues that don't have good internet connection, but is that ever a problem? The fact that it's so integrated and it's so live.
Sometimes we have this kind of conversation with a new organizer, and they are a bit scared of, will I have enough internet capacity to run the events? But once we tell them that running Smoothcomp is not, it doesn't require super fast internet. It just has to be a stable internet. So you can even share your iPhone connection and then run an event with 3 mats or something. So once we kind of tell them that and they understand what is required, it's usually not a problem. And so far we haven't had any problems actually with events that couldn't run because of internet. But of course, and we took an early decision that we wanted to be an online platform. We actually made a lot of kind of investigated this a lot. And I know Martin, our CTO, he was very like, how do you say, decisive, or like he knew that you will have more problems trying to run a local area network with connected computers using wires, IP addresses, conflicts, etc., than going online. You can pick up any device, just reach internet, and then you have the software in the cloud instead. So like when we started out, choosing between the two was never actually a discussion we had. We knew that we wanted to be a SaaS solution, like software as a service solution, and that was the thing that made us grow fast, I guess, because we understood early that we need to be online, constantly online, and as internet capacity get better and better in the world, we see that we will become stronger and stronger, because we understand. I mean, here in Sweden we have a super good internet, fast connection, fiber connection. Is like sometimes I need to remind myself about that, that it's not like this everywhere, but eventually it will become better and better. So I see a tremendous potential with Smoothcomp because of this.
Yeah, and I think it also pushes people. So if somebody is in a position where they're choosing between venues with good internet or not so good internet, and if they want to use Smoothcomp, they will make the necessary steps to fit what you are presenting. So from that perspective, I think you have a little bit of power even to dictate the development towards the kind of more technically sound venues and arrangements. And how does this whole system, because I know you've largely focused on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I think your platform is presented as a combat sports platform. So how do these things translate, and what portion of your customers are from outside of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and how do the features kind of translate to other sports?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we are. I mean, since we do jiu-jitsu, and that's it was easy for us when we started out, because we've been competing, we've been living in this in the jiu-jitsu community for many years. We had a lot of people, knew a lot of people. It was easy for us to reach out to the people we knew. But the idea, and I know I pushed hard for this, and we agreed early on that we wanted to be tournament software for combat sports. Because the process is still the same. Even if you do taekwondo or karate or judo or MMA or boxing or whatever, a fighter needs to register, he needs to pay, he needs to be in a division or a bracket. You need to have a scoreboard for that, and then you need to, at the end of the tournament, show some results. And pretty much it's the same. Then the vocabulary is a bit different, and the colors and the different scoreboards, but pretty much it's the same. So our focus is combat sports now, but early on when we started out, it was natural for us to contact our jiu-jitsu buddies, people that I knew and Martin knew from competing and from running events. So we became very big in jiu-jitsu. But now we see many other sports joining in. We have very nice conversations with judo federations across the world. The French Wrestling Federation joined Smoothcomp a couple of months ago. So Olympic wrestling is now present with a national federation. We have national federations in taekwondo, karate, boxing. And that's something that we will improve this soon. So it will be easier when you go to our event finder. I think we have like 500 events now many of them postponed right now, of course, but we still have 500 planned events that organizers have put out there. But it can be quite hard to understand what kind of events it is. So we will introduce filters for this. So you will be able to find, show me jiu-jitsu events or show me karate events. So that's coming.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this because I think I remember one specific case in Ireland here, like where we are based. I think there was a kickboxing tournament, it was Irish Open or something along those lines, and I can't remember if it was Smoothcomp or just a Facebook page, and I just suddenly see all of my jiu-jitsu acquaintances registering for this Irish Open event, and I know for a fact it's not Irish Jiu-Jitsu Open, so everybody's going crazy. That is like, oh my god, there's this event, and there's like.
Imagine if you never understood that it was, and then you show up on the day to compete, and then it's a different sport.
I'm pretty certain some people did show up. So yeah, that's funny. And sometimes I guess maybe you have a little bit of a better insight on the basis that you're working with these guys, because I think when we are in jiu-jitsu community. And basically, your entire social media is focused on jiu-jitsu. All your feeds, all your news, all your interactions are based on jiu-jitsu. So we kind of cocoon ourselves in this jiu-jitsu thing, and we forget about all the other things that exist in the sports world. And so, how big are those? Because in our view, I think jiu-jitsu is growing. It's massive. It's like there's tournaments and there's things popping up here and there, events. Do the rest of the martial arts bubbles, their own bubbles, do they grow as much as jiu-jitsu, or how do you see the difference there?
Yeah, they do. And that's something that I'm very, happy that I get to, because I need to have like a wide perspective on when my Facebook is filled with not only jiu-jitsu, but a lot of different sports right now. And I get to talk to organizers from all combat sports right now. Like when we started, and then we pretty fast got a lot of traction in the jiu-jitsu community, and we got a very nice and big partners to join Smoothcomp. We were like, after a while, we were like, okay, so where to go now? And then suddenly judo showed up and showed interest. And then we realized, wow, the world of judo is huge. There's a lot of judo tournament. They're structured a little bit differently. We actually spoke to both Kip and David about this, and how come that jiu-jitsu has these large companies like Grappling Industries, like Naga, New Breed, Five Grappling, and they run events a bit more commercially. But judo is more governed by national federation. So they are structured a bit differently. But I mean, judo is an Olympic sport. There's a lot of events going on. So I would say that the entire combat sport industry is growing as a whole. We're seeing tremendous growth in all areas of Smoothcomp regarding new events popping up, and people are going into this business of running tournaments. So yes, it's growing, absolutely.
It's very, very interesting. And so just a couple more questions. So one, I'm very curious about your systems and the kind of the technical challenges that come along with growth. Okay, so when you have, a couple of tournaments running, I presume it's a different kind of physical capacity of your servers, of your systems, versus running like hundreds of tournaments, right? So how did that change over time?
Yeah, that's been something that we constantly have to adapt to, and so far we have been able to scale these manually. I'm not, I'm not a developer, so some of the things here is maybe it's things that Martin should answer. But as far as I understand, we've been able to manually scale this. So sometimes if we know we have a busy weekend with a lot of events, maybe like 30, 40 events running on the platform on the same weekend, we scale up manually. So we add servers, so we have more capacity. But actually now we're taking this coronavirus situation, and we've been working a lot with moving our servers to a more to a scalable solution on Google. So we now Kubernetes is the word for it. Like it will automatically scale depending on the demand of our servers. So that is something that is coming, and it's something that it's work. I understood that you work with this also professionally, so I understand a little bit of parts of it, but it's going to be automated. Nothing that the end user will ever see, but for us, it's going to be a big comfort knowing that it's scalable.
Yeah, so it's basically dynamic resource scheduling to an extent that as the capacity is close to max, it will automatically upgrade itself basically to extend that capacity, so you never really run out of juice essentially to run these events. Yeah.
On the other side, like because I mean most events are of course in the weekends, so during the slower days like Monday afternoon, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we don't need that much capacity. We still have a lot of people signing up, and people are visiting the event finder, and as we add on more features, we're adding a really cool feature in a couple of days. I think we're going to see a high demand of people visiting Smoothcomp, not just to register for events. So we need to have like a basic capacity during those days, but then before the weekend, we need to be able to scale up.
And what is so just to kind of finish off our conversation, is in relation to overall Brazilian, so we spoke about the overall growth of combat sports, but if we again narrow it down to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specifically, there's clearly, as you have demonstrated over the last years, there's a lot of space for innovation, there's a lot of space for new things in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to professionalize the sport, to grow the sport, to grow the ecosystem so people can make living out of this thing. So what are some of your broad views on the industry as a whole? Where do we find the kind of the new ways of doing things, the innovation, the growth to enable more people to live off the art? So the question that I always ask my guests is, aside from traditional means of running an academy or seminar, how do people go about making a living in this industry?
I mean, internet is of course a fantastic tool for this, and I think that organizers that quickly adapt to using internet in good ways, running an academy or running events and taking advantage of internet, will have an advantage. So streaming is of course a big part of this. That's why we're focusing a lot on our Smooth Streamer solution, a free solution where you can stream your events with an integrated scoreboard. So that's where I see a tremendous potential for any business owner. I mean, look, the situation now, people working from home, and then businesses like Slack or Zoom or Skype or any tool that makes it possible to have a meeting like you and I have now is going to be very, very important. So a company that quickly adapts and learns this will have a big advantage. Same thing with private lessons. I have a good friend, like one of my instructors that I train for, his name is Jonathan Thomas. He's an American, but he lives in Gothenburg. He built a great way of running businesses and doing privates using a webinar like Zoom. So yeah, that I see is very important for organizers or instructors to use this tool.
Yeah, and I think this situation is, again, as bad as it is, it will be a catalyst for a lot of dramatic changes, I think, in the scene, as people understand how much, when this is the only way of doing things at the moment, how much you can actually get done through these means, via internet, via some form of online things. And we had CornerMe guys over on our second episode of the podcast as well. There's a similar kind of concept where they're developing on the whether it's private classes or match analysis online. So they're kind of facilitating that type of stuff as well. And then obviously our own platform, All Jiu-Jitsu, again, we're trying to get people engaged in that. But 100% I agree. So very, very interesting point. So perfect.
Yeah, it's a fantastic period for internet, and not so great for the world right now, but hopefully we will live through this and come out stronger. But if you adapt fast to internet and understand that and take advantage of it, it can be really good for your business. Absolutely.
Amazing. Ricard, thanks very much again for joining us and for all your insights. I think, like, for me personally, it was very interesting, and I hope our listeners find it very interesting as well, because I think most of our listeners will be users of your platform at some stage.
Thanks a lot, Peter. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, we hope so. We are super dedicated to build Smoothcomp better and faster and with more features all the time. So it's the most fun project I ever worked on, and I'm super passionate about it. So yeah, thanks for reaching out, and thanks for the conversation. Nice to meet you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you do, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.